20 Minutes on Ice, powered by the Garage Door Sports Network. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Nick. We've got a fantastic show coming right up for you, so let's get to our opening face-off. Today on 20 Minutes, we are going to be talking about Tom Wilson versus the New York Rangers versus the NHL, and that whole saga that went on last week. Everybody's got an opinion. You can bet that we do too. Plus a bunch of other stories. Surprise, there were other stories around the NHL last week. We're talking Connor McDavid, TJ Oshie, Marc-Andre Fleury, David Backes, Michael Hauser, plus there was more. And of course, we have all of our regular segments, including Players of the Week, 3 Hot, 3 Not, and the Randomizer. But first, a man who's administering vaccinations out of the trunk of his automobile, Nick McVicker. Nick, how's it going this week?
Pretty good, man. And I mean, you joke about the vaccine. I got mine on Friday.
Awesome.
My arm is still a little sore. I'm not gonna lie, but not like terrible. It was way worse yesterday, but today it's fine. Still a little sore.
Looking forward to it. I'm, based on the guidelines in Ontario, I'm coming up in the next couple of weeks or so. So
gotta love being in a hot spot.
Yeah. Once that happens, we can start getting together for some in-person podcasts, like the way it used to be able to. But
it's funny, we never did.
We haven't. No,
we have not. That's crazy. Think about that. We have never done a podcast together in the same room.
This is episode 42. We have never been in the same room for a podcast.
I feel like if we were, we would be like hitting each other with jokes. Like.
It would just be a cluster F because we've never done it before. 42 this way, we're comfortable, but lots going on in the NHL this past week besides Tom Wilson at the New York Rangers. Let's get right into it. How about Connor McDavid doing what we all expected him to do, but he hit 100 points in 53 games. We haven't seen this kind of scoring pace since Gretzky in the 80s, any of the Oilers in the 80s. And I was surprised to see Lemieux had 100 points in 38 games in 95-96 going that late. But an unbelievable season here, still ongoing by Connor McDavid.
It's incredible. And I was talking to a bunch of people this week, and we might be watching two of the best players to touch the ice in the last 20, 25 years in Matthews and McDavid. We're probably watching one of the best pure goal scorers in Matthews and one of the greatest players to ever play the game in McDavid. It's incredible. But what he's doing, he just makes it look so effortless. Like, he was 20 points shy with like 10 games to go, and now he has extra games. He's just been playing so good the last 2 weeks. It's incredible. And we are truly watching history, and this guy will go down in history as one of the best. I think it's undoubtable at this point.
It's amazing the scoring pace that he can keep up, considering the defensive schemes and how smart players are now compared to. It's going to keep happening. That's the natural progression of everything. But just amazing what he's doing. And as we record, he's at 53 games. It'll be interesting to see what happens to him at 54, 55, and 56 games to see if the pedal is still pushed down to the floor.
Oh, his pedal will always be on the floor. Come on, you know that.
It'll be up to the coach to take him off the ice for his own safety and for the betterment of the team. Another feel-good story that you really wanted to touch on here, alerted me to, the goaltending for the Buffalo Sabres and Michael Hauser. And he won his first 2 starts, and his second start that he won was a shutout. Both those were against the New York Islanders. This guy was a lifer, CHL player. I believe that was Central Hockey League, East Coast player, AHL goalie. Just circumstances put him in net, but he shows up and does not make a fool out of himself at all.
No, and honestly, in those first 2 games, he looked composed. You could tell he was a little nervous in the first game in the first period, but he settled down, and it was kind of impressive to watch. And even in the 2 games since, like, he's lost his last 2 starts, but he still has looked composed. It's just that Buffalo team is awful, so he was going to lose eventually.
It doesn't matter what happens in Buffalo, but it didn't seem like they lost. Okay, the level of play for Michael Hauser is catching up to him.
No, it wasn't catching up to him at all. He was confident, he was comfortable, and it showed, and he looked really, really good. for a lifetime minors player. Like, he looked very comfortable in the net for the Sabres, and I hope he can continue. And I hope someone, maybe not the Sabres if he's not signed with them, like, hopefully he can latch on as a backup moving forward, because I think he deserves it, and I think he's shown that he can play at this level and be confident. I mean, the second game he won in a shootout, didn't he?
Yeah, it was 0-0, I believe, going
Yeah,
into
so he won a shootout. Like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a feel-good story, and you want to see him maintain that level of play. So you want to see this guy have success. Moving on to David Backes, the Anaheim Ducks. David Backes. Lots of speculation, and nothing's being refuted that this could be his last season. He spent the last 2 or 3 seasons kind of going in and out of lineups with St. Louis and Boston and Anaheim. He played his final game in St. Louis, where he had a ton of games, the majority of his career, and there was lots of emotion. A post-game interview with Darren Pang as well, and it was just another feel-good story where you see someone who's had success, worked hard for the success, and kind of gets rewarded with that moment.
yeah, and I sent you the video of the interview with Darren Pang, and just hearing him say, this is a guy who's played almost 1,000 games in the NHL. Let's take that in. Almost 1,000 games, Ryan. And he had the ability to say, every single time I stepped onto the ice, it was like fulfilling a dream. 1,000 games, you think that would change? No, he truly loved the game, and he was a hard-working player. He was one of those guys that no one really hated because he played the game clean, but he played the game hard, and everybody would have taken that kind of player on their team. So David Backes, great career. Glad he got to kind of finish it in St. Louis too, like unofficially. It's not confirmed, but he even was sort of saying like, yeah, this is probably my last game. So
yeah, he seemed to accept it. Like I said, it's not being refuted. He's not getting word out there that this, he's not fighting against the rumors of his last season, and he enjoyed the moment. So all signs point to it. It was just a great story. It's nice to have those great stories right now.
Agreed.
Looking over at the Blue Jackets in Columbus, not a surprise, but it has been staged. John Tortorella, Columbus Blue Jackets, mutually parting ways. I wondered this a few weeks ago, how long Tortorella would last. Well, he lasts to the end of the season, and this was probably discussed at that time. But Columbus is on the search for a new coach, and I wondered, when you have a team who's at this low of a level currently, whether or not they would respond to a coach like Tortorella, and I guess the answer is no, and they're going to be looking for a fresh face.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Columbus, who signs on as the head coach, because I think they need a very specific coach, and I don't know how many of those are out there right now that will fit their bill. And that's not to say that they don't have good players. They have some very good players in that system. Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, Patrick Laine, obviously, who they picked up this year, is a good player. They just need the right system, and they need the right coach to bring that system together. I do believe that this was actually a mutual parting of ways, because Columbus really respects Torts. He's the winningest coach in franchise history, I believe. Like, they respect him. I don't think they wanted to fire him, and I honestly think Torts was done in Columbus. I think he was just tired of it. So I do believe that this was a conversation that was had probably 2-3 weeks ago when you and me were talking about it. And they said, listen, we'll give you to the end of the year. Are you good with that? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. We'll walk away after that.
Yeah, let's just finish this out. You enjoy your time, and everyone will leave with a smile. Similar situation in Arizona, where it's been reported that Rick Tocchet and the Arizona Coyotes mutually parting ways. This just broke an hour or two, a few hours before we started recording here. So similar situation there, with the Coyotes missing the playoffs, underperforming. So we'll see where Tocchet ends up. For me, this is the guy. It sounds like Carolina is going to sign Brindamore. So now, for me, it seems like this is the guy who ends up in Seattle.
Yeah, and you kind of used the 20 Minutes on Ice Twitter account to say that, which was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about it before, but it's a good point. And Rick Tocchet's one of those guys who works well with young teams, is what they've said about him. So considering Seattle is either going to be a really old team of all guys who are just out of contract, or it's going to be a super young team of guys who weren't really given a chance on other NHL teams. It might be a good idea to have him in there.
I think Tocchet's the type of guy who can motivate young players, and this young team, which, they don't even have a team and they're not expected to succeed, but he can motivate them to a few extra wins and to not be an embarrassment on the ice. Not that they would be, but you want to have that desire to play and succeed and not just accept your fate. So as far as the Coyotes, I guess I tweeted out that they're probably going to go find the next prodigy, but they'll pay them bare minimum because that's what Phoenix does, and they're just going to find themselves in the same spot in 3 to 5 years. That's where I think.
I hope not, because there's some very interesting young players in the Coyotes organization that I really want to see succeed. I don't think they're like elite of the elite players, but like that second level, I think they could be super effective players in the NHL. I wanted to phrase that properly, but I think they could be very, very good players in the NHL. But they haven't had the right system in there, and they haven't had the right production, and it's just unfortunate because I think they could put together a good team with who they have in the organization. But
I disagree. I think they put together a mediocre team, but we'll see where it goes in Arizona. Let's get to I can't believe we're talking about the under 18s. I'm not in any position to really go in depth about the under 18 World Championships here, but we have been following 15-year-old phenom Connor McDavid this season, and he played at the under 18s, and another player who also had exceptional status in the Canadian Junior Hockey League, Shane Wright, and they played in that tournament, won gold for Canada, and showed that they are going to be number 1 draft picks likely going forward.
Respectively, which is kind of crazy. You're probably looking at 2 number 1 draft picks back to back. Shane Wright was the
outshine the other. Like they both were standouts. One didn't take a step back because the other one succeeded.
No, not at all. And like I was just about to say, Shane Wright was the captain of the under 18 team at 16 years old. Like, just take that in. How good do you have to be the captain of a team of 2 years older than you and dominate at the level? Like, both of these guys finished the tournament with 14 points. Shane Wright had 9 goals and 5 assists, Ryan. Connor McDavid, 7 and 7.
Yeah, in 7 games. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Standout play, and when the spotlight's on them, there was no excuses. There wasn't like, oh, we haven't had a season. Oh, I only had a 20-game season. Anything like that. They just went out there, and on the international stage, they won and they performed. Just fantastic. I wouldn't say cementing their spots as number 1 picks, but clearly the people to watch as number 1 picks for the upcoming drafts. Shane Wright's 2022, I believe, and Bedard's 23 for their draft year? Okay.
Yes, it's not this year. Wright's next year, and then Bedard's the year after that, which is just crazy still. Like,
all right, we did the Bedard and Wright watch, which is kind of new, not an official segment. Let's go.
Hold on, it might be next year. We'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. Okay. But the official segment is the Barks and Huey watch. Keeping an eye on those Florida guys. 2 superstars playing for the Panthers. It looks like maybe they might get that second position there in that division and get the home ice advantage against Tampa Bay. They will play Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs. How did Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau do this week, the week of May 3rd to the 9th?
Yeah, well, actually, it was a pretty good week for both of them and a pretty even week. They only played 2 games, Florida, as of recording. I'd like to make that clear. 2 games as of recording. They each had 3 points, Ryan. 3 points apiece. You gotta love it. Gotta love it. Huberdeau was 2 goals and 1 assist. Barkov was 1 goal and 2 assists because, they can't have the same. That would just be ridiculous. A little concerning for me, Barkov was a -1.
This keeps happening. Each week there's one player who's a dash player.
Yeah, but Huberdeau was a +3 with 12 penalty minutes. Because why not?
But
both his goals came even strength, and his 1 assist came on the power play, whereas Barkov's goal was on the power play and one assist was even strength. So just weird. Like
The biggest thing for me that I took away from this week is they played Tampa Bay on Saturday, and I believe they're going to play them again. Even by the time you hear this podcast, they've played them. But when the game got greasy and rough and dirty, Huberdeau was there, Barkov were there. They were pushing people around. This is against Tampa Bay. They are ready for the playoffs. They're showing people that they're ready, and I can't wait. I've said this before, but I really can't wait to start tracking these guys in the playoffs and seeing, one of them put in a double overtime winner that the Panthers always remember. I'm really excited. I don't even know why, or this isn't typical, to watch the Panthers in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is really odd for you, Ryan. I know this is way out of your wheelhouse. But no, it's going to be fun. These guys are superstars in this league. Not elite superstars, but these guys are superstars, Ryan, and there's no doubt about it. And it's going to be fun to see them play against Tampa because Tampa's filled with superstars and probably has the best goalie in the league. So to see if these guys can still perform against Tampa come playoff time when Tampa needs to be 100%, we'll see. Could be interesting.
I'm worried about Tampa, but we'll get into that at another time. So, Nick, we have to get into the Tom Wilson New York Rangers saga, and it's not a simple story. So let's dig into that right now. All right, Nick, here's the rundown. I've actually had to print out the entire story and how it went down in front of me here because so much went on. We'll go sort of situation by situation. We'll get your opinion. We'll get my opinion. But the story wasn't even, like, the story was captivating, but it didn't even follow a typical arching storyline. It was spikes of up and down. I don't even know if it went down.
Great explanation. Great explanation.
Let me run down here what went on between Tom Wilson, the New York Rangers, and I guess the NHL is another character in this story. It starts off with a Monday night game between the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers in Madison Square Garden. There's a scrum in front of the net. Tom Wilson decides to take a shot at Buchnevich, who's down on the ground, face down on the ground. But then Panarin jumps on Wilson. Panarin's not a fighter, so he gets pulled down to the ice. This was kind of the play that got Wilson fined. There may have been some hair pulling, and then there was a shot to the back of Panarin's head, who wasn't wearing a helmet. Tom Wilson gets fined $5,000. The official explanation, actually, was for roughing Buchnevich. It seemed like a sucker punch to me on both accounts. And from what I saw, former players are like, oh, that's part of the game. That happens. There's 100 scrums every night. And the rest of the hockey world is like, we would have liked to have seen that dealt with. So just thoughts on the punishment, the $5,000 fine to Tom Wilson, and whether or not it suited the infraction.
That's a loaded question.
Deep. Just looking at this one situation, we're going to get into the whole thing.
Are we saying if it was anybody else?
We're looking at Tom Wilson. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things going on here, and if you have opinions on what Panarin or Buchnevich did, go ahead, throw them in there. But did this $5,000 fine suit what Tom Wilson did on Monday?
That's what I meant, though, because you can look at it from two different angles, and this is where I kind of I struggle a little. If I told you, watch that video back, Ryan, watch the playback, and it's not Tom Wilson, like pretend it's like Mitch Marner, someone who has never been suspended, never been fined. Is that a suspendable offense?
That, to me, is a $5,000 fine because Panarin heading down to the ice without a helmet like that, that's a dangerous situation. And whoever committed that act needs to be aware of those situations. And the punches to the back of the head, I just didn't think was respectable or anything like that. So, and I'm on it now. So I'm moving with
That's
this.
fine. I want to build on my point after, but continue your thought.
And Tom Wilson is a repeat offender. We saw him get suspended this year for a certain number of games for what seemed like a hard body check on Brandon Carlo of the Boston Bruins. And he got suspended for that. And the reasoning of the severity was that he's a repeat offender. So I thought we should have seen something like that here as well.
So that's my point, and that's why I asked you the first question, because if it was a suspendable offense for anybody, then he should have been suspended. But you said it should have been a fine. He is a repeat offender, though, so a max fine needs to result in a suspension. And that's kind of how I've been thinking this entire time. If it was his first time, and he had never done anything before, if it was Mitch Marner, right, in this scenario, because I keep using Mitch Marner, I don't know why. Pick any player who has never been suspended, never had any issues. If it was that player, the $5,000 is fine. I probably wouldn't have had any issue if it was anybody else. Because it's Tom Wilson, because he is a repeat offender, I thought they should have suspended him for at least a game, possibly the rest of the season. Now it's only 4 games, but possibly the rest of the season. And I would have been okay with any length between 1 and 4.
I thought one is good. And even if the NHL, and this was proven, we'll get into it, even if the NHL said it's for the safety of the game on Wednesday, which was a rematch in Madison Square Garden between the Caps and Rangers, even if they said, we want to have that game proceed with minimal incidents, so Tom Wilson is suspended for Wednesday's game, that would have been fine by me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's what I said. Anywhere between 1 and 4, I would have been fine, just because he is a repeat offender. He's had some big suspensions before. So you know what? If they wanted to add on a couple extra games, go for it. But he should have been suspended for at least 1 game to avoid the absolute stupidity that we had to witness in that game, because that was a joke, Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that, or do you still want to go chronological?
I think we'll go chronologically.
Okay, that's fine.
A lot happened. It was a joke. We're going to get into the rematch game. I can't remember if it was that evening or the Tuesday evening. The Rangers then put out a statement. It was
Tuesday afternoon-ish, because I was working. That's the only reason I know. It came out in the middle of my internship, and I had to make a board up for Sportsnet, and I'm like...
So...
They said that?
Wilson fined $5,000, and then the Rangers decide to put out a statement, and we'll get into it. Seems like this was ownership-driven, this statement, that they were disappointed that Tom Wilson wasn't suspended. They were shocked that the league and the Department of Player Safety didn't take appropriate action, and they believed that George Peros was now unfit to continue in his role as head of Department of Player Safety. Let's look at this. Were the Rangers right to put out this statement? Because as soon as they put it out, I was like, wow, yeah, you're putting your balls out there. You're saying what you mean. And, whether or not they're right or wrong, I appreciated them sticking to their guns. And, I kind of agreed with their sentiment at that time.
I was fine with everything until they specifically named George Peros. The rest of the statement, that's fine. No issues with that. The fact that they called out George Peros, who is one member of the Department of Player Safety, I know he's the head. I understand that. But not every decision is determined by George Peros. Like, there's a lot that goes on in the Department of Player Safety, Ryan.
He's the head, though. So
he's the head. I get that.
All decisions rest with him. He may not have made it, but as the head, you are taking on that responsibility, that you're responsible for those decisions.
And I get that. Had they said that we are disappointed and don't think the Department of Player Safety is fit to do what they're doing at the moment, I would have been fine. The fact that they called out George Peros, that kind of pushed it past where I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Other than that, I think the statement in and of itself was fine before that point. After that, you lost me. I'm sorry, Rangers. I'm off.
So I'm a little fed up with Department of Player Safety, and
I am too. I want to make that clear.
Of suspensions. That's kind of another topic that we can dig into maybe in the off season, because it seems to me, I'll put a brief thing out here. It seems to me that there's the hockey players' perspective, which they're living in their own little world. Then there's the rest of the world, and everything's understood and dealt with it in a separate way. So I think that needs to be eliminated, and that's something we should get into on its own show. Plot twist now here in this whole saga. Suddenly,
Is it really a plot twist? It's the Rangers.
yeah, it's Jim Dolan, right? So it's not really a plot twist, but this is a plot twist in this Hollywood saga here. The Rangers have all of a sudden fire their president, John Davidson, and their general manager, Jeff Gorton. Dolan indicates that it has nothing to do with Davidson and Gorton distancing themselves from the Rangers Twitter statement that they put out, and it's all performance based.
Which isn't wrong, by the way.
So you don't believe Dolan's account of why they were fired, performance based, or were they fired? Were they fired because performance, or were they fired because they tried to distance themselves from ownership statement?
Can I say both?
I do not accept the performance.
Well, no, because this team was supposed to really compete for the playoffs, and they're going to miss the playoffs again. So I think it's partially performance-based. I think James Dolan had a bigger say. I'm not saying that's the biggest reason why they got fired, but I think part of it was like, okay, if we were doing well, right? Like if the Rangers were first in the Eastern Division, right? Let's just say that. And he pulled this move, it's not performance-based. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're successful. They're not in the playoffs when they were supposed to be a playoff team this year. So is it his kind of way of getting out of saying that I had more of a say in this than their performance? Absolutely. He is totally copping out and trying to find a way to make it not his fault. It's James Dolan's decision, 100%. But like 99% of it is because of James Dolan, and maybe 1% is performance-based. I can't say that it's not performance-based. I think part of it is, but a very, very tiny percentage of it, Ryan. Not much, but it has to be there.
For me, this is a guy who's James Dolan, who's, just pumped up on himself.
Who's ruined multiple franchises. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. He's his own number one fan. He's probably pumped up on himself. This is my opinion. And, two people heading up the Rangers organization didn't like what he said, went against what he said, didn't believe in what he said, and he found a reason to fire them. Instead of just, he had the balls to put out the comment on Twitter, have the balls to say, well, these guys didn't agree with me, so that's why I fired them. Be a big man at that time. So
Right. I agree that that's the majority of the reason. I'm saying it's a little bit for performance, like a very, very tiny bit, because they didn't meet the expectations that were set before the season.
They competed for the playoffs and they fell short, but they are a better team. But we got to move on in this saga because Chris Drury is named the new general manager. He was previously assistant general manager. He's currently the interim president for the Rangers, and rumors are out there that James Dolan has wanted this to be Mark Messier as the president of the Rangers for a long time. So your opinion on making Drury the GM and then possibly bringing in Messier as the president?
Drury as the GM is a great move. He's been part of the organization for a little bit, but he's also worked his way up to that position. He wasn't just like thrown in as the assistant GM or anything. Like he's kind of taken a couple steps. He had at least one step before that, before he, like, not necessarily in the Rangers organization, but in hockey. So I think he's actually going to make a very good GM, kind of similar to what we've seen with like Sakic, former players taking the time to get into the role and then succeeding. I think he'll be very good. Messier, I'm not sold on it. Like I think Messier could do a great job, but he hasn't done anything along these lines. Like this is a guy who is like Lay's. That's what I know him for, is all the Lay's commercials. Like he doesn't run any organizations. Like that's not who Messier is. Yet. Like, I think he could be, but just not yet.
We'll see. And someone, I forgot who, I wish I remembered who, someone got a hold of him for comment after the firing of Davidson and Gorton and asked for his opinion on the Rangers team. And he decided to speak up with, well, that's not how I would have built the team. It's like, is that really the time for that? So what this makes me think...
He answered the question.
He answered the question. Yeah, that's fine. There's other ways to answer the question too, but
Agreed.
that's he answered the question, which we all want most of the time. Um, for me, what it says then, I shouldn't have gotten mad at him for answering the question. The indicators to me are that James Dolan's bringing in the people that he wanted, his buddies almost, like the guys he always thought should do this job. And that's not necessarily the right people for the job. So at one end, he could end up, Chris Drury could end up like Joe Sakic and be successful at the position. At the other end, he could end up like Kevin Adams, who seems way in over his head in Buffalo and can't get anything done. So, and I'm leaning towards the Kevin Adams end of the scale here for Drury and maybe Messier if that happens in the next year or two, just because they're the boss's pick and they're not maybe the reasonable pick.
Hold on. Is Drury the boss's pick? Because he was part of the organization before. He was learning as an assistant GM. It's not like he's just being thrown in, right?
I believe, and I might be wrong, so I'll say that as my opinion. I think he was put in the role as assistant GM at the request of the owner.
Oh, and that's fine. I'm just saying though, he's had the chance to learn before being thrown in as the GM. Like he had the assistant GM before. He wasn't just thrown in. Kevin Adams, I feel like, was more just thrown in.
He had a position within the Sabres, but who's learning good habits in the Sabres?
That's my point.
And so Drury learned from the guy from Gorton and Davidson, the guys that you thought couldn't get the job done and needed to be fired with 3 games left in the season at a time when, all eyes are on your organization. It's
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. He might be Dolan's pick, but I also still think Drury has a better chance of succeeding right out of the gate than Messier. That's my point. I wouldn't just clump them together.
All right, let's get to the Wednesday game now. The rematch.
Oh God, another one?
Between the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers. 1 second into the game, all 3 forwards on both teams.
It wasn't actually 1 second. I would like to point that out. They have to put 1 second because it rounds, but it was as the puck hit the ice.
Yeah, and everyone's squaring off. So now all of a sudden, you got 3 fights in the first officially 1 second, and it ends up being 6 fights within the first 4 minutes of the game.
4:30.
4:30. There you go. As we progress, Buchnevich decides to take matters into his own hands, and Anthony Mantha receives a cross-check in the face, and there ended up being a fine on that. And then kind of swept under the rug, but still a big part. Tom Wilson leaves the game after 1:52 of ice time with a upper body injury.
Hold on, Ryan. Say that again properly.
Upper body injury. Winky, winky. Winky face emoji. So thoughts on the game when there's 6 fights in the first 4.5 minutes? Obviously, you're like me and you don't think Tom Wilson's upper body injury was legit. And then on that Wilson point, who pulled him? The Caps or word from the league?
Oh, it definitely wasn't the league. The league built their bed with the Department of Player Safety decision, and they just said, well, guess we're dealing with this.
Even with George Peros in the building.
Yeah, no, they don't care.
And seeing what happened in the first 4.5 minutes.
They don't care.
You don't think they got involved?
No.
I personally do. I think they got down to the Capitals and either threatened them with some sort of discreet fine that we would never hear about, or maybe they came to a conclusion that for the betterment of this particular game and the safety of everyone, Tom Wilson needs to remove himself, like the NHL should have done to begin with.
No, I don't think that happened, right? I really don't. I think the Washington Capitals made the decision to be like, okay, they got their hunk of flesh. We got our hunk of flesh. You're done. We don't want this to go on the rest of the game. We actually want to play a hockey game. Because I think the Capitals are actually a smart enough team to say that.
So then you're saying that they wanted those 6 fights in the first 4.5 minutes.
I don't know if they wanted 6. I think they expected Tom Wilson to have to fight on his first shift, which he did. I think by the time they got to the opening faceoff and the 3 and the 4th lines were the ones starting the game, they knew. I don't think they expected the other 2 fights as well, like the Strome fight, which was off the drop of a puck in the defensive zone, and I can't remember what the other one was. There was one more fight though.
Too many players. Plus the lack of social distancing in the penalty box.
That was one of the funniest pictures. But it was just disappointing that it got to that point. Like the NHL, we talked about it. The NHL could have avoided this by giving him a 1-game suspension. If they had given him at least a 1-game suspension, there was not 6 fights in the first period. There was not 100 penalty minutes in the first period. 100 penalty minutes, Ryan.
Okay, so there's a lot of arguments here. I heard a lot of people saying, "Hey, guess what? A lot of people are tuning in to that Rangers game," and it was like apparently it was the lead story on ESPN Sports Center that night too. That let off
because it set a couple records. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay, but in the end, do you think that attracted any new fans? I'm not anti-fighting.
New fans, no.
No, so I don't think that grew the game. Sure, a lot of, people watched it because if you advertise that someone's going to get stabbed in the eye at 8:30 tonight, people are going to tune into that too. But I don't think it was good for the game, and I think overall the big loser here is not the Rangers, not the Capitals. They look like buffoons coming out of this. The NHL.
And I don't think the Capitals look like buffoons.
They're just as equally guilty with all the fighting as the Rangers are. So that's
you could call that defense though, because they knew the Rangers were coming after them because of what the NHL did. Honestly, the Rangers and the Capitals don't look like buffoons to me. It's the NHL. The NHL comes out of this looking really, really bad and looking like they don't understand how to govern their own game.
They look like that, 4th position professional sports league in North America that's never going to have a sniff at moving into the top 3. Just giggled them off, right? Because this is how things are handled in the NHL.
And you know what? What it resulted in was the Buchnevich suspension, which, can I jump on this one, Ryan, quickly?
Yeah, this is the next step in this saga. So Buchnevich is suspended for 1 game because of the cross-check to Mantha.
Which was brutal. I'm surprised he didn't get more than 1 game. That was a vicious jump. He jumped and cross-checked him in the face. You cannot do that.
He only got 1. This is my assumption. He only got 1 game because they couldn't give him more if they only gave Wilson $5,000 for punches to the back of the head, pulling someone dangerously down to the ice, and he's a repeat offender.
Yeah. I was floored that they could not give him more than 1 game in their eyes. Like, that is a dangerous play. Like, if we did that in beer league, we would be suspended for the rest of the season.
I don't want to compare beer league to
but I'm just saying, like, we would be suspended no matter what point of the season it is. We would be suspended for the rest of the season. I get it's the NHL.
Yeah, in beer league. Let's stick to the NHL here. And I thought what the appropriate fine would have been there is a $5,000 fine. Like, okay, the Caps don't like that. They want more. Well, your guy did a dangerous thing as well. So 2 $5,000 fines. If the NHL could have wrapped their head around that idea, then everything just would have been evened out. Okay, you're not happy. You're not happy. It must be a good deal because both sides aren't entirely happy.
I mean, this was a much more dangerous play, in my opinion, than the Wilson thing.
Interesting. I disagree.
I still think Wilson deserved more, though. Let's not forget that. I think Wilson should have been suspended.
I think he deserved more on the repeat offender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But I think this is a 2-game suspension for anyone because he jumped and cross-checked a guy in the bottom of the jaw where no one has protection, really. Right? That's a dangerous play. You could dislocate a jaw at doing that easily.
Now, remember, the NHL or Department of Player Safety takes into effect injuries as well.
And thankfully, Mantha wasn't hurt.
And that's why I think it was only a game.
But I think it should have been 2. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the final piece...
Which is a joke, this last piece, by the way.
The final piece of the puzzle, and maybe that's just a temporary thing. Who knows what could come of this. New York Rangers fined $250,000, $250,000 by the NHL because they came out with their Twitter statement against George Parros. And apparently this thing backfired. And I never would have seen this coming. But behind the scenes in the NHL, amongst other owners, they kind of united behind George Parros in their belief of his capability to do the job. Did not see that happening, but the Rangers get hit with the $250,000 $50,000 fine. And then you saw all sorts of things on Twitter like, oh, you could cross check, or you could punch a player in the back of the head 50 times, or punch 50 different players in the back of the head for the same amount, So just for me, it added on to the gong show pile that is the NHL and their inability to handle this situation.
It's a joke. That is what it is. Like, it's also chump change for James Dolan, so he doesn't really give a crap. Let's be honest. He doesn't care. But it's a joke, Ryan, and I'm really tired of it, and I wish there was an easier way to deal with it, but...
And it also, says, don't question us. Don't even dare. This is what don't even dare question us. They even tried to slip into their, statement. The NHL did. We don't expect everyone to agree with us. Okay, or deal with this internally. But the NHL made a point of being public of, you question this guy? He's the best. How dare you question him? You're being fined for questioning the best. And it's, it's just, like I said, nothing really to get mad about, because I'll never see that amount of money in my life. This doesn't apply to me. This doesn't change my life. It just makes me mad because the sport and league that I love the most just makes them look like total asses.
Yep.
Yep. That's pretty much...
I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm just frustrated. So,
well, hopefully this whole scenario is done. I don't think Tom Wilson's done.
No.
I think Tom Wilson will strike again at some point in his career. Sorry, this is my opinion. I don't believe Tom Wilson has the mental wherewithal to understand that he can be an effective player and back it up a little bit. So I think we will see more from Tom Wilson going forward. You'll see more from us going forward after we come right back after this.
Hey everyone, this is Irfan Manji from Touchline Thoughts. We are an all-soccer podcast hosted by yours truly with guests every episode. We provide news, analysis, and opinions every episode as well. Touchline Thoughts is powered by the Garage Door Sports Network, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcatcher. Cheers.
All right, Nick, we are back. 20 minutes on ice. After we got slightly fired up there were positive stories in the NHL last week. We went over some of them in the banter section, but there were even more. And unfortunately, this first story coming up here was swept under the rug because of the stupidity in that rematch, the Capitals-Rangers rematch. But TJ Oshie coming back for his first game since his father passed away, and he puts up a hat trick and is obviously and clearly emotional on the bench. But just what a performance after having to live with that and then being able to do that for himself. And obviously he probably, would dedicate a performance like that to his father. That should have been the story of the week, and it's not.
And I think that's what made me so upset about that game on Wednesday. Because, again, it was another one of my shifts that I was working. So I was actually working my internship during this game. I had it on. I was messaging you throughout. And I'm watching TJ Oshie, and he played like the consummate professional. And they were talking about, like, someone tried to fight him. I can't remember who it was who tried to fight him on the Rangers, and I apologize. I wish I knew that answer. And they mentioned that he should be the only player that is exempt from all the stupidity that's happening because of Wilson. And he should be. The guy lost his father. Think about how distraught you would be in a game right after finding out. Like, he found out a day or two before. Something along those lines. Think about what was going through his mind. The last thing on his mind was fighting. You got to smarten up. And then he goes out and plays the exact perfect game. And he goes and gets the hat trick with two very nice goals and a bit of a clunky one, but you gotta get if it goes across the line, it counts, Ryan. So
they don't show how you scored him on the score sheet.
So it was just so disappointing that the Wilson fiasco, saga, whatever you want to call it, overshadowed a beautiful moment. The Capitals wore a coach patch, like sticker or whatever, on the back of their helmets because that was his dad's nickname, was Coach Oshie. It was such a beautiful moment and just so hard to watch when it was being overshadowed by the stupidity in the first period.
And even up to this point, we're recording on a Sunday. Everyone's forgotten it. It's not being talked about, and it's because of everything that happened in that game. And that's kind of
disappointing.
It's disappointing. Yeah. It's just, the respect level for TJ Oshie just goes up. Not that it was down.
I've never had any disrespect for Oshie.
It's breaking through the rating scale there, but just an incredible performance. Continuing on with incredible performances, Marc-Andre Fleury. Is this quietly? He's now number 3 all time in goalie wins. I should have had the number in front of me. It's 490, 493, but he passed Luongo to become number 3 all time winningest goalie in the NHL. And for me, we like to look at individual stats, shutouts, goals against average, but in the end of the day, the players want those stats so that it contributes to winning. And that's what Marc-Andre Fleury has done throughout his career. Number 3 all time.
Yeah, he's at 491 right now, Rye. Past Roberto, who was at 489.
Okay, so 490 was the passing number there.
Yeah, so 491 as of recording right this very moment. I don't even think they're not playing tonight, so
not this Sunday, no.
We're good. It's incredible, and he's one of those guys that everyone seems to love as well. Like we talked about Backes, no one really hated Backes. Fleury, everyone loves because he's just so animated, I guess, in the crease, which we haven't seen since Hasek, really.
So much personality, and he's having fun. It's a fun personality.
Yeah, and this is a guy who had so much pressure on him. Let's not forget that. He was the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Like, so much pressure on him. And he's just lived up to it.
Yeah, second goalie ever to go number 1. And the first was Rick DiPietro. So, I mean, and look where he is now, too. And
he's just lived up to everything, and he's now 60 wins behind Patrick Waugh. So, is he going to get there? Maybe, the way he's playing. Like, he doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah,
and he's on Vegas.
I don't see him getting there, and especially, I don't know, maybe he ends up in Seattle as well, too. So I don't see him getting to the 60 there, and that's just what. I mean, I got nothing against Robin Lehner. It's just like I don't know why Vegas wants to go with Lehner over Fleury. I guess it's just the age.
Yeah,
the age issue. They have.
Well, I mean, when they brought Lehner in, Fleury was struggling a little. I wouldn't say he was declining, but he was struggling a little. And then Lehner had that fantastic run.
Yeah, but Fleury reset in the offseason and has done everything to keep that net, and Vegas is hell-bent on giving it to Lehner. And
yeah, it's disappointing. And I think if he gets another chance somewhere else, he's still going to find ways to win because he's Fleury. Like, he's just so happy to play the game. Do I think he gets to patching Patrick Waugh? Probably not. But
I won't see it.
Something to keep an eye for.
Yep, and it would be a great story if he finds a place to land, because clearly, I mean, his contract doesn't say so, but his time in Vegas is coming to an end here, and hopefully he finds a place to land where he can be successful and get those wins, because he's a very likable. His TV personality, he's a very likable guy.
I hope he becomes an analyst at some point.
That would be great, but he might be a French language analyst, and then we'd be like, But
he could be a TSN and jump between RDS and TSN.
Who knows? Like you're saying, you want to see him on TV after his career done. That's how likable he is. Yeah. We want to see Marc-Andre Fleury, and we want him part of the hockey world. So it would be great to see him continue to move up that list. There were so many stories. I'm just sitting here, how many things we've gone through. Connor McDavid, Michael Hauser, Marc-Andre Fleury, David Backes. We touched last week on Ryan Miller, but there was the touching moment after he played his final game and his parents were there.
Same game as Backes.
Well, this one was in Minnesota, wasn't it? So I think
I thought it was St. Louis.
I think they put Miller in. Again, this is why we didn't touch on Miller, but I think they put him in. They either had him start the game or put him in for the third period to close out his career. But just all these great moments is what I wanted to get into. And the NHL couldn't get out of their own way. and we were talking about Tom Wilson and all that crap for way too long. So it's just another week in the NHL. We will be right back with our usual segments, including Player of the Week and, of course, the randomizer to close it all out. So that's coming right up next on 20 Minutes on Ice. 20 Minutes on Ice. Ryan Haslett, Nick McVicker, back with you. And Nick, it's time for our segments, and that means Players of the Week.
I love that music, Ryan. I love that music.
You wait all week to hear that tune. So, Players of the Week for the week of May 3rd to the 9th. This is Player of the Week, Rookie of the Week, Goalie of the Week. Nick, let's start off with Rookie of the Week, and you can go first on this one.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, Ryan, it's I got to take our Calder pick at this point. Kirill Kaprizov, head and shoulders above every other rookie this week. He's finishing the season so strong. I'm kind of scared that Colorado's most likely going to have to play Minnesota just because he's playing so well, and I don't want to lose to a rookie in like a game 6 or 7 overtime game. It's going to be him to score. I just know it, and I'm very upset about it, and I don't want to deal with it. But regardless, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points in 4 games. He averaged a goal and an assist per game this week, Ryan. Incredible. 6 even strength points, 2 power play assists, overtime game winner, all on 14 shots. So he was shooting at a 28.6% clip. Add in, he was playing basically 19 minutes of ice time. Perfect week for a rook.
Yeah, and he's elevated himself past Jason Robertson at this point. He is going to win the Calder Trophy, and good for him. And for all those people complaining that he's an older player, I think he's 24, 25, had some seasons in the KHL. Listen, he's playing his first year in the NHL, and if the NHL is the premier league in the world, and it is, I believe, then you want to acknowledge someone who succeeds in their first year making the step up to the best league in the world. So forget this age restriction stuff. My Rookie of the Week from the LA Kings, Gabe Vilardi, playing second line center for the Kings. In 4 games, he had 4 points. 3 of those were a goal. All 4 of his points were 5-on-5. So that's, I love to see that because, as we've mentioned, that's more difficult. It's always important to succeed on the power play, but guys who can get it done 5-on-5, that's really a highlight for me. He scored those 3 goals on 8 shots, which gives him a shooting percentage of the week of 37.5%. And one of his goals was a game winner. So Gabe Vilardi of the LA Kings, my Rookie of the Week.
And it's a good call, Ryan, because he was dominant this week. He looked really, really good. The 37.5% shooting percentage is the one that stood out to me. 8 shots, 3 goals. Are you kidding me? I wish I could shoot at that pace. Like, that is ridiculous. And I've been talking about
Kings this week.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I didn't watch Kings this week, so I can't say specifically what happened. I'm looking at a stat line, and it looks good. But it's like you scored 3 on 8. Were there opportunities where you passed up a shot, or players are watching him, and he made the most of his 8 opportunities there, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many different ways that he possibly could have gotten more goals, but 4 points in 4 games is nothing to scoff at. And I was talking about Vilardi earlier in the year. I think he's going to be a very good player for this Kings team. We talked about him many times. So I think it's finally starting to click, and he's getting that second line time, and it's working. He's playing between Iafallo and Elias Anderson, I believe it is. So like he's doing what he needs to do. So continue to do it, and we'll probably say his name. Well, we probably maybe not won't say his name because it's the end of the season. He's not a rookie next year. Darn.
You want to see more going forward next year. So
yes.
I want to see the Kings succeed. I like the Kings, and some of the players coming up are players I want to become more familiar with because they seem like they could be a young team. With
maybe next year we do a Kings watch.
Someone's going to have to be on the watch next year. But like you know, it'd be Bedard and Wright. So goalie of the week, and I'll take the leadoff position on this one. And we touched on it on this player already, and so I wanted to make Marc-Andre Fleury my goalie of the week. And the reason why I wanted to choose him, he's got great stats this week. The reason why I wanted to choose him is because Vegas is trying to push him into that backup role, and he's going to make Vegas look bad doing it because he's had such a successful year. Is he in the Vezina conversation? I feel like I want to put him in the Vezina conversation. The team's succeeding. He's succeeding anyways. For the week of May 3rd to the 9th, he went 2-0 in 2 games, 1.48 goals against average, and a .939 save percentage. I like Marc-Andre Fleury. I like Vegas. I like when Fleury succeeds, so that's why he's my goalie of the week this week.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the Vezina trophy is down to 2 goalies right now, but he's probably third. I'll give him that. I think he's firmly entrenched in that third spot, but he's just looked good. Like there's nothing wrong with Marc-Andre Fleury. No matter how much they try to say that there's something wrong with him in Vegas, there's nothing wrong with Marc-Andre Fleury. He is a good NHL goaltender. I hope he can continue this. He's 36, maybe for another 2-3 years, because that'd just be fun to watch, and we'll see what happens. Does Pittsburgh look dumb for what they did? A little. They pushed him out.
Because they went with Matt Murray
instead
of Fleury, and now, they had to say see you later to Murray, but now they have Jari. So
they have Jari and DeSmith.
Yeah. And Jari's turned out to be a player for them, despite some early season stumbles. So
they looked a little dumb, and now is it Vegas' turn to look a little dumb? Maybe. We'll see. I guess it's my turn now, right? I'm going with Mike Smith. I know, crazy. Why would I pick a guy named Mike Smith? No, he's looked good this week. 3 games, 2 wins, because he came in relief for one of them, I believe. Didn't take a loss or anything. He just didn't get a record on that game. He just came in. But 922 save. Sorry, go ahead, Rye. I keep cutting you off.
No, I was making a joke. I said halfway through he just bailed. But I
think it was the other way around. I think Koskinen started and he had to come in relief.
God, that guy's a trash can. But anyways, we're talking about Mike Smith.
922 save percentage this week, Ryan. 215 goals against average in 167 minutes played. So he played just over 2 2/3 of a game. Not bad. Oh, and your favorite stat every time we do goaltenders. He had an assist because he's the best goalie at playing the puck in the NHL.
And I know why else you chose him, because he looks nearly identical.
No, I do not have that kind of hair.
During the offseason, we're going to put that to a poll, but Mike Smith, Nick McVicker could be the same person.
I don't have that kind of hair anymore, all right? No.
Anymore. All right. No, that's a good choice. I don't want to scoff at his 215 goals against average for the week, because that's still really good. But then you saw some other goalies put up numbers under 2. So
yeah, but most of them only played 1 game.
I don't want to scoff at it. So good for Mike Smith, and good for the Oilers. I still kind of feel like they're pretenders heading into the playoffs, and I like Winnipeg better, but Winnipeg can't win a frickin' hockey game right now. So
Winnipeg can't score. They're fine defensively. There's no issues on the defensive end. They can't score.
Just unbelievable. All right, I think we're both sticking with the Oiler train here for players of the week, but Nick, there's an obvious winner this week, so you go ahead.
Oh, you're so kind. I get the obvious winner this week.
Made it easy for you. You didn't have to use
Cry a
that.
little. Well, Ryan, let's be honest. If we didn't have to pick two different players, we'd both pick this guy. Connor McDavid is on another level. He's from another planet. Like, he's so good at what he's doing. And the crazy thing is that he has 13 points in 4 games, but he only has 3 goals. When have we ever said only 3 goals in 4 games is only? Like,
he's trying to make the other players around him better, and no one's coming up to his level because his level is up here. No one can get to it.
His level is off the screen. He's so good at what he does. 325 points per game this week. 9 on even strength. 4 power play assists. He took 14 shots. He's not a shooter. He's not a scorer. Let's make that very clear. He is a absolute beast at what he does because he makes all the play and then just passes it off for someone to put the puck in the net. And let's not forget, almost a 57% face-off percentage this week, too.
That's what I wanted to highlight, Nick, is he's not known as a strong face-off player, but he's putting up points. He's clearly, we mentioned this already a few weeks ago, he's clearly going to win the Hart Trophy. There's not even a question. Don't bother nominating other players this year because there's no point. But with all the success, he's doing something good for the team with the high face-off winning percentage.
Yeah. One thing I have a question for you, Ryan. Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
Do you think anyone else gets votes for the Hart?
They better not.
No. That's not what I asked. I said, do you think someone else will get at least one vote for the Hart?
You're talking about a first place vote, right? Because I believe you have to vote first, second, third, and fourth, maybe even fifth.
Yes, first place vote.
There might be some goon out there. There might be 2 goons out there who decide that, someone else deserves the Hart Trophy, but there shouldn't be.
No, I just asked because it was going around on Twitter, and I laughed because everyone was saying some Pittsburgh writer is going to vote Sidney Crosby.
I love how you chose Pittsburgh because I watched.
I'm actually saying this was what was going on Twitter. Like, this was being said on Twitter. That's the only reason I said it. I don't think the Pittsburgh people will be crazy enough to vote Crosby, but
okay, so it's funny you said that. I just quickly, an aside here, watched the Pittsburgh broadcast on Saturday afternoon or the beginning of it, and they were all like, yeah, I mean, Tristan Jarry, maybe Vezina. We got the best line in the league with Crosby, Gensel, and Rust, and it's great. Pittsburgh's being successful, and it's great that your broadcasters are all on board and really appreciative of the situation, but from an outsider's point of view, it's like, okay, that's, you stay in your Pittsburgh, you stay in your Pittsburgh box there.
They're in their bubble.
Yeah, that's
at least they're COVIDing.
My player of the week, also from the Edmonton Oilers, and the reason why I chose him is because the 6 goals in the 4 games. Again, May 3rd to the 9th, Leon Draisaitl, 6 goals, 8 points, 4 games, as I mentioned. 4 of his 6 goals were on the power play. Now, I always like to highlight when players can score 5-on-5, but the power play also has to be successful. So get Draisaitl the puck. He can put it in the net for you. He had 16 shots for a shooting percentage of 37.5%, the same as my rookie of the week, Gabe Vilardi. So Leon Draisaitl almost forgotten in Edmonton sometimes because of how good McDavid is.
I mean, he has a Hart Trophy.
He has art, and people may end up, not remembering that right off the hop because of what McDavid could potentially do here in a career. So
he's just so good.
Those were our players of the week for May 3rd to May 9th. Nick, it is now time to get to 3 hot, 3 not. All right, 3 hot, 3 not. The way this works is, Nick, you're Mr. Negative this week. You got 3 not. You'll go first, and then I'll bring us back up on the positive note with 3 hot.
All right, Ryan. Well, it's kind of hard just to pick 3 teams at the bottom this week. There's been a lot of not very good teams. And I think for the first time all year, the Tampa Bay Lightning come in at number 3 for me. And that's hard to say but they were 1-2 on the week with 9 goals for and 12 against. So the goals for, not super concerning, not great, but 3 goals a game is not concerning. It's the 4 goals against. This is supposed to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. They're giving up 4 goals a game heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, they lost 5-1 on Saturday against the team they're going to play in the playoffs, the Florida Panthers.
That's not a good look. And the other stats aren't great either. 15.4% on the power play. I mean, not the worst power play percentage, but not where that one should be. Yeah,
well below league. Yes, well below league average, and not where it should be for that team.
And 88.9% on the penalty kill. Again, not terrible, but not where it should be for a team that is the reigning Stanley Cup champion, and everyone assumes that they're the best team in the league, or they assumed that they were the best team in the league. Also, you're getting outshot every single game, and you have a below 50 faceoff percentage. That is not good, and that's why they are number 3 this week.
Maybe they just took their foot off the gas because it's pretty much cemented. They're going to play Florida in the first round, can't win the division, whatever. Just back up at this point.
Yeah, and my next team probably would have ended up being number 1 had they played more games. But Calgary is going to be my number 2 this week. They only played 1 game.
Now, as we're recording, they just finished up a drubbing of Ottawa.
Oh, they drubbed Ottawa?
6-1, yeah.
Okay, then I'll take them out. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because that means that they were positive on goals. So we'll change it up, and that's fine. My number 2 then will be Winnipeg Jets. And I'll throw the Winnipeg Jets in there. They were also positive on the goals, but just it wasn't impressive, really. And you could also maybe throw Chicago in, but I'm going Winnipeg because Winnipeg is trying to get into the playoffs. Or trying to better their position in the playoffs standings. They're not looking like a team that is trying to do that. And it's not good.
At the 4-game losing mark, 4 games in a row, it was like, okay, guys, time to get serious. Stop the bleeding, and it's just gotten worse. More gashes are opening up all over the place.
It's not looking good, and a 9.1% power play in the last 2 weeks leading up to the playoffs, that's a huge red flag. Like that should be setting off alarms in the Winnipeg camp.
That they have.
Yeah, and I mean, they were positive on shots by 1 overall per game, but they were only shooting 25 shots a game. Like that's concerning to me, and that's something that they need to look into and be like, okay, well, hold on, we probably need to check something out here. They're not going to, but
again, I like I mentioned, in my mind, Edmonton's still a pretender until they do something in the playoffs, which they can because they have Connor McDavid. So to me, that's still an incredibly interesting series, Oilers and Jets.
100%, I agree with you.
And a close one, too.
Yeah. And then my number 1 not hot team this week, Ryan. Montreal Canadiens. And oh boy, where do I begin? 8 goals for in 4 games, so 2 goals for a game. Not the worst, so I'll give them that. Not the best. Still concerning, especially when you're going up against a team in the playoffs that's the Leafs, who all they do is score. 15 goals against in 4 games, almost double the number of goals that you score, is not good. 9.1 power play percentage. Oh wait, we just said that with Winnipeg? It's the same thing. Not good. I mean, 100% on the penalty kill. Full credit to you. Congratulations. You did one thing right this week. You didn't let a goal in on the PK. They got outshot by 7 on average in the 4 games, and they had a 44.6% face-off percentage.
All the stats for Montreal are not intimidating, especially as a Leafs fan. Leafs are likely going to play Montreal in the first round, it seems.
It's almost guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, nearly guaranteed at this point. And nothing scares me out of everything you just said. I'm like, the Leafs look like they can handle that.
Except the PK, because the Leafs can't score on the power play, so that's not good. They're just going to go 0, and the Montreal Canadiens will be 100% the whole series.
What happens if Carey Price comes back and is just all world in the playoffs like he was last year? That could really, I don't care what the Leafs are putting up and how much the Canadians are crapping the bed. If Carey Price just shows up and is that brick wall from Nintendo 64 Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, any team could be done.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's get a little brighter here with the three hot teams. My number 3 team, and surprisingly, this team, surprising to me because I didn't think they were this team, has clinched the division. The Pittsburgh Penguins. This past week, they were 3-1-0. All 3 of those wins coming in regulation. 18 goals for, 14 against in the 3 games. So I like the goals for number. The goals against number is going to get the job done. So that's why they're number 3 on this list. 50% on the power play. The PK numbers weren't there, which is odd, but also at this time of year, you know, you put a little asterisk beside them because teams are kind of taking the pressure off the pedal. So 71.4% on the PK. As far as shots, average for this past week, 31.3 shots per game against 32.5. So it's even. They're winning. They're scoring. And I have belief in this team that they can tighten it up before the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it on the head. They probably will be able to tighten it up before the playoffs. Am I necessarily scared of Pittsburgh right now? No.
Yeah, how come we're not scared of Crosby performing in the playoffs like we're scared of Price performing in the playoffs?
Because Price performing in the playoffs has a bigger impact on the outcome of a game than Crosby performing in the playoffs just because of the positions that they play.
All right, my number 2 team, and this team keeps showing up, and their stats don't warrant them showing up, except for that wins column, the column that counts, the Minnesota Wild, number 2 on my list, 3-0-1 this past week. Get this, 3 wins, only one of them was in regulation. So, I mean, that counts in the regular season. Playoffs, just win the game however you can. Again, the goals for to goals against 16-14, only a 2-goal difference in this massive week that they had. Power play stats lower than where you'd like to see them. You'd like to see them 20% or above. They were at 16.7. PK, you want to see that in 80% range, and they were 75%. So these stats, except for the wins column, there's no reason Minnesota Wild should be here, but they are.
You're right again, and as a Colorado fan, I'm very concerned about that because they seem to just find ways to win. Right? You know, I don't think they're the better team.
I'm not concerned at all. I think once we get to the playoffs here, these stats are going to, come to the surface, and Colorado's taking care of Minnesota in 5 or 6, I think.
I want to believe that, and the recording came out of Garage Door Sports. I said that on Garage Door Sports. Unfortunately, technical difficulties did not allow that to come out. But, Ryan, they find ways to win. And that's a concern when it comes to playoff time because that's what happens. A team just find ways to win.
Minnesota found ways to win against different teams in the regular season. When it comes down to cracking one team 4 times, I don't think these stats indicate that they can do it.
And I believe that as well. I'm just saying, as a fan of Colorado, it's a concern because they do find ways to win. Do I think they're going to beat Colorado in a series? No. But they do scare me because they find ways to win.
All right. Well, again, this is what makes playoffs so great. We'll see where this goes. Things can take left and right turns and end up being nothing that you ever expected. Now, my number 1 hot team, I put down on my list before we started recording, and then it went off the rails for them, and it's the Ottawa Senators. Yeah, as we're recording, they went ahead and lost here to the Calgary Flames 6-1. So I'm putting them number 1 on my list and just pretending that this
Asterisks.
game, didn't count. Sorry, it didn't make the cut when we went into the 3 hot, 3 not meeting. So the Ottawa Senators, before tonight's drubbing, were 3-0-0, all 3 wins in regulation. Goals against in those 3 games, only 4, which is fantastic. Goals for, it wasn't high. It was only 11, got the job done. Power play number, low again, 14.3%, but 100% on the PK. I'm not even looking at how they did in the 6-1 game against Calgary. And their shots, low on the shots. They averaged 25 per game, and they had nearly 30 shots against per game on average, but they won. It was almost a similar situation to Minnesota. They were 3-0-0, and I'm not looking at how they played tonight. So, and again, Ottawa Senators, the type of season they had, they're not likely to find themselves on the hot list, but here's their opportunity. They're on my hot list.
We've found ways to sneak them on the hot list when we can this season. We've tried. We've gone out of our way a couple times. But up until tonight, they deserved a spot on the hot list. They were playing very, very well. Obviously, that kind of goes out the door a little bit after tonight. But you know what? You gave them the credit where it was due. I respect it. And now we move on.
All right, and moving on, we are to our closing of the show. Time to fire up the randomizer. Here we go, Nick. Back-to-back weeks, we are going to be playing Ice Chips, which is trivia. We have trivia for the second week in a row here, Nick. You know what? I believe I let you lead off last week.
I did lead off last week. Yes, you're right.
So I will lead off this week. I do have a bit of a theme for my questions this week, and it is goaltending stats as of the early evening of May the 9th, 2021. All right, Nick?
Okay.
But so I do understand you're going to be taking some guesses here, but hopefully they can be educated guesses. And once again, we must remind everyone we are not using the benefit of our Googlers.
Although I would laugh because one of my questions is a goalie.
Oh,
I would laugh if that's one of your questions. And I will, but I will admit if it is, I will say it out loud so I don't get called out for it.
Okay. All right. Question number one. And each question is supposed to get more difficult as we go along here because the first question is worth 1 point. The final question is worth 3 points. And if you followed along with that, you would understand that the middle question is worth 2 points. So, Nick, as of May 9th, 5 p.m. Eastern, which NHL goalie has the most shutouts this season with 7?
I'm pretty sure it's Varlamov.
That is correct. Well done, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's Varlamov.
1 point for Nick. Okay.
I'm very happy about that.
Yep, that's a good start.
Ryan.
Here we go.
So my theme, by the way, is players that we talked about in the show.
Ooh, okay. I think you did this before, and I did not do well. But
I did it last week.
All right, I'll give it a shot. Don't go juniors. Don't go juniors.
No juniors. No juniors. I will promise you, no juniors, because that's not fair. Because you would never get any of those.
No.
Ryan, David Backes has played in 15 NHL seasons. How many seasons did he have more than 100 penalty minutes?
Ooh, in the 15. Do I have to get the number right on?
I'll give you +1 either way.
Either way. Okay. Let's see here. David Backes, he was a hard-nosed player, but he was also a scorer early on in his career, so I'm not convinced he had time to put in the 100. I will say 6 seasons.
All right, I got to give you the point because I said it would go 1 either way. He's only had 5.
5, okay. Well, yeah, I'll get the point there.
But ready for this?
Yeah, when were they in his career? Tell us.
That's what I was going to get to. His third season, when he had 31 goals and 54 points, he had 165 penalty minutes. The next season, he had 106. He had 93 the season after that, which was followed up by 101. He had 62 in the lockout-shortened season, where he only played 48 games. And then he followed that up with 119 and 104. So in the last 7 years, he didn't have a single season where he had more than 100 penalty minutes.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of taking into account. I forgot to take into account that lockout shortened season. But yeah, I figured he'd have a slow start to that progression and then, really in his prime pick it up, which is what happened. And then the last few seasons, almost as a, just because of circumstances, because he wasn't playing a lot, he wouldn't be able to reach that number.
Yeah.
But those seasons that you highlighted are David Backes's resume right there. That's what you'd show when you want to know about David.
So, hey, 1-1, Ryan. We're much better than last week.
This is better than a 1-0 matchup. All right, Nick. My next two questions are almost equal, but I'll ask this one. And, okay, you don't need the number. You just need the goalie. As of the evening hours of May the 9th, 2021, which NHL goalie has seen the most shots against this season so far? Who has seen the most shots?
I'm going to say Vasilevsky.
You're going with Vasilevsky. No, it's not Vasilevsky. It is Connor Hellebuyck. As of this time.
That makes sense.
1,200.
I was trying to think of a goalie who hasn't had his backup play many games, and Vass hasn't had McElhinney play many games this year.
Good. That was good way to think about that. That's not who I was thinking you would have gone like, oh, who's a bad defensive team and is giving up too many shots.
Well, I know Minnesota gives up a lot of shots to the outside, so I was going to go Minnesota, but I know they split the time pretty evenly, so that doesn't make sense. Right. So I'm not going to go Minnesota. So I'm like, okay, well, Vasilevsky's played a lot of games. Yep. Tampa gives up a lot of shots on the outside, but they're not really like high opportunity chances. So that's why I figured maybe him.
And maybe that's why Hellebuyck is the tops in the league for shots against, because he plays so many games for the Jets.
And that probably would have been my next guess, honestly. If I had really thought about it, Hellebuyck would have been number 2. So
absolutely. Next question, Nick.
Gosh,
2 points on the line.
All right. Well, I'm sticking with the players who we talked about, and Marc-Andre Fleury has had a great season, and he's posted a .927 save percentage. How many seasons has he had a higher save percentage than this year? 927 is your number, Ryan.
How many seasons has he gone higher than 920? That's a pretty big number. I mean, it's 2 points above 925, which I believe is where the expectation is, or the average. Good question, Nick. You know what? He's higher than 927.
This one you have to get right because it's the harder question.
Yeah, that's totally acceptable. I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't really know the answer, but I'm going to guess one season. And it sounds like I'm wrong, but my thinking was that season with Vegas where they were just incredible, won the division, and went to the Stanley Cup final.
So, Ryan, he has 0 seasons where he has a higher, because that season he had a .927 save percentage.
Oh. Was off by 100%. Unbelievable. 1/10%.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, that was a good question, Nick. That was a good one.
Thank you.
My final question. This is the hardest question. I really don't expect you to get this without looking it up, but you're not allowed to. As of May 9th, 2021, which goalie leads the NHL in penalty minutes with 8? 8 penalty minutes.
Jordan Binnington.
Oh, good guess, but no. Binnington's on the list, but it is Pittsburgh's Tristan Jarry.
Really?
Yes, I was surprised.
Angry little man.
Maybe you just can't control the puck. I don't know. I didn't have a list of what his penalties.
I know, I'm kidding.
8 penalty minutes there for Tristan Jarry. Okay, Nick, it's still 1-1 here as we head into your hardest question, which I never get. But
and this one is not related to a player we talked about this week. I will say that because let me correct that. We haven't talked about him on the show.
Okay.
You and me have talked about him outside of the show this week.
Ooh, okay.
And it's Jeff Skinner.
Skinner? Okay.
Skinner. Jeff Skinner currently has 14 points for the Sabres in 53 games. Now, I know he kind of had a little injury, but still. 14 points, 53 games. I'm not giving him any benefit of the doubt on this one. How many Sabres players, Ryan, have more points than he does, but have played less games? Sorry, have as many or more points than he does, but have played less games.
How many Sabres? They've played less games than he has, but have more points than he has.
He's played 53, so he's played all but 3 games this year.
Good
They're done,
question.
by the way. They've played 56. They're done.
Yeah. I have two players in mind. Just trying to think of anyone else who could have done this. I mean, if Grant Fuhrer played less games and then had a really good season, he'd have more points. All right. I'm not coming up with any other big injuries there. Nothing's ringing a bell. So I'm going to go with Jack Eichel.
You don't have to say the player's name. I'm saying how many.
I'm going to say two. Eichel and Eric Stahl. I know he was traded, but I'm saying Eric Stahl had less games than 53 with the Sabres and maybe had more points than Skinner.
You are wrong.
Oh, I really thought I was being
Eichel
smart.
does. I'll give you Eichel. Stahl only had 10 points in 32 games for the Sabres. 5 players on the Sabres have more points in less games, as many or more points than Jeff Skinner. Are you ready for this list, my friend? We have Casey Middlestad, Taylor Hall.
Oh, I forgot Taylor.
Jack Eichel, Ristolainen,
Really?
and Brandon Montour.
Well, just more evidence that the Buffalo Sabres need to blow it up and start again. Oh, Buffalo. That was a great question. All right, we end up tied 1-1. I'm a nice guy, so I'll give you a bonus point for looking like Mike Smith, so you actually win.
No, you get 2 bonus points because all of your jerseys are North.
Okay, so we're just handing out happy.
I won last week on a nice point, so you get this week on a nice point.
All right. There we go. I'll take it because I don't win often. So. And that is the horn that brings an end to this 20 Minutes on Ice. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you download your favorite podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up like button. That really helps us out. And be sure to subscribe to the Garage Door Sports Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan_H16. Be sure to follow me on Twitter this week because I will be starting up my Just for Fun playoff pool. That's a personal playoff pool that I run. You can also follow Nick on Twitter at Nick McVicker. And the show is on Twitter and Instagram at 20 Minutes on Ice. Head on over to garagedoorsports.com. Find the whole roster of network shows under the shows tab, including ours. And we will be back next week, Saturday morning. You'll be able to download our podcast because we are coming at you with our playoff preview. That should be available Saturday morning. Playoffs should start Saturday afternoon or evening, so you'll be able to listen to us, then go right into playoff action. So that is not a Tuesday show. It's a Saturday morning show. Thank you for listening, everybody. Goodbye.